We only hire liars, said the Intersectionals. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and before I continue, I'm going to remind you that the only way this video will reach a wider audience will be with the help of your shares, so please consider that if you like the video. Now, as for what I'm going to talk about, I've long thought that there was something peculiar going on in left-wing urban meccas due to the fact that I've heard probably dozens of times from people who have relatively decent paying jobs, usually at corporations, that everybody lies on their resumes. Right before they say, "But not me, I didn't do that." Perhaps this standard of universally lying and then seemingly lying about lying regarding the fact that they did it might even be in most cities, or even right-wing meccas. Or perhaps not. I really don't know, but after thinking about it for a long while, something occurred to me. Is it possible that these companies are actually looking for liars during their hiring process? I mean, when you look through Craigslist and you see the job requirements for entry-level jobs, they all seem to be at least looking for a college diploma, 2 or 3 years of work inside a similar office, skills in Microsoft Office, and often something like Photoshop, and then often being bilingual or some other crap. Now, doesn't it seem from those requirements alone as if many recent college graduates would have to lie on their resumes, most likely about the years of experience in a similar office part? That being said, if everybody lies on their resume, wouldn't the people hiring them have at least some skill in detecting liars? I mean, you bring in too many liars, you get good at detecting who's lying. But presumably, if everybody lies, they don't really care all that much. And that's what got me thinking about this hypothesis. Due to the fact that most corporations seem to lie to their customers all the time, especially if it's a social media company, perhaps they actually want people who are ready and willing to lie to people. So maybe they explicitly look for people who've already proven themselves to be willing to sacrifice their own integrity in order to get the job. Because that'll make them more likely to lie on the job. And so, maybe that's useful to these companies. However, being that I've never worked at one of these corporate office jobs, aside from a rather pointless internship at a film distribution company that didn't really give me all that much work to do anyway, it remains a hypothesis because I have no actual evidence of this that I can point to. Still, I'm realizing that this type of thing is even more likely when you start looking at the tyrannical, draconian set of new laws and company ethics regarding transgender or non-binary pronouns in both the workplace and in the education system and academia. You see, a recent story came out about somebody who was teaching at a high school in the United States who accidentally misgendered a female-to-male trans student, then apologized about it, saying that it was a reflex-explained accident, but he was still subsequently fired after his apology was not properly bootlicking enough. Though, let's face it, they probably would have fired him anyway, because apologies never work with intersectionals. Clearly, this school must have been infested by intersectionals, and intersectionals lie constantly, as a rule. Some of them probably lying about the fact that they're actually communists, to your face at least, some when they pretend to have male privilege, and others being fooled by the lies of intersectionals into not believing this has anything to do with communism. But make no mistake, In totalitarian, quasi-Marxist, intersectional feminist environments, the way that they've begun to enforce their rigid and completely ideological worldview is by making it legally punishable to defy the rules of intersectionality. And the first step that Western intersectionals have chosen is an agenda-motivated strategy of purifying society of all of the non-intersectional people with influential positions by forcing people to obey counterintuitive pronouns so that they can fire teachers, etc. over accidents. Now, obviously, when creating these horrifically insane laws, they stressed super hard that we won't fire anybody based on misgendering unless it's a rare situation where the person is a repeat offender. But that was a lie, of course, because these people always lie about their true motives, because the book Rules for Radicals is their overall strategic Bible, and it's basically a manual for how to successfully lie for political gains. Thus, after a man was fired as a high school teacher for accidentally referring to a female-to-male trans person as a female, we can assume because this trans person didn't pass as male, the teacher ended up being fired unfairly, violating his rights. But now we're supposed to be okay with this because it's the law already and we must obey the law, even though intersectionals have a tendency not to. This got me thinking about another thing I read today, which was about the supposed nature of non-binary people, which presumably was supposed to provide some bit of clarity to people who are rightfully confused as the non-binary movement forces its way into all of our lives with draconian authoritarianism everywhere it can get their paws into law and group etiquette. It's short, so I'll read it all for you. Being non-binary has nothing to do with looking non-binary. It's time to get rid of stereotypes about non-binary people. I am sick to death of all these stereotypes. People are suffering. People are dying of transphobia for being non-binary. If you think someone looks like a female and you call them trans, maybe like this person, that is violence. I'm so tired of this. That's what that face kind of says to me. Anyhow, I've been on hormones for almost 4 years. My presentation is femme. I use she, her pronouns, but I consider myself non-binary, neither a man or a woman. Often there is this stereotype that non-binary people must strive for perfect androgyny. But that stereotype is harmful and overlooks the broad diversity among non-binary people. Just like assigned female at birth non-binary people don't have to disavow a feminine appearance, neither do assigned male at birth non-binary people. Vice versa for masculine or androgynous looks. When we create and enforce these stereotypes in the trans community, we risk playing gatekeeper on who is trans or not. Who is trans or not. But just like there is no right way for men and women to present themselves, there is not a right way for non-binary people to present themselves. There is a similar stereotype that all non-binary people prefer they pronouns, but pronoun usage does not define whether someone is really non-binary. There is no logical entailment between what pronouns you prefer and whether you're non-binary. Furthermore, not all non-binary people even identify as trans. Some do, some don't. Another stereotype is that assigned male at birth non-binary people have facial hair. This is not true. While we shouldn't use facial hair to invalidate the transness or femness of assigned male at birth non-binary people, we also shouldn't be surprised that some, such as myself, have dysphoria about their facial hair and seek to remove it. And speaking of dysphoria, there is no logical connection between being non-binary and how much dysphoria you may or may not have, or whether you want surgery or hormones. Some non-binary people have strong dysphoria and go on HRT/surgery, and others don't. There's this idea that being non-binary is about being in between male and female, but there are many ways of thinking about being non-binary. For some, it's being neither male or female and defining your own gender. For some, it is about being in between and achieving a kind of androgyny. And we can also think about gender as a multi-dimensional spectrum and non-binary people falling somewhere outside the two primary positions of manhood/womanhood. In other words, there are many different ways for non-binary identity to situate itself with respect to the binary. In a broader sense, non-binary is just an umbrella term for anyone who does not identify within the binary. In summary, there is no single way for non-binary people to look or identify. There is so much diversity in the community, and we do ourselves a disservice by focusing only on androgyny and neutrality as the ideals of being non-binary. There is room for the full spectrum of expression within the non-binary label. Okay, real quick, did you not notice that they used "there is no logical connection" twice, and seemingly purposefully tried to make this little label as vague and nonsensical as they could, as if to say, we are an advanced alien race that is so mysterious to you petty earthlings that you will never even comprehend what we really are. Obviously, this will lead people into feeling more confused than they were before they read it, but here's what I'm thinking. I don't see any reason at all that making people more confused wasn't the actual point of the article, at least unconsciously. They want to be so special that mere mortals cannot understand them. I think these people know they're full of crap. I mean, these are the same types of people that said, black people can't be racist. Everybody knows that's not true. And there's no rhyme or reason to the worldview they all magically adopted together around 2015. And being part of being in on it simply requires that you have to go around lying, literally constantly, including to yourself, because of course, these are the new authoritarian rules, and you want to live a life without constantly being attacked, or you want to be a part of the new privileged class emerging of non-binaries who have arbitrary power over people based on usually nothing. And so, in that way, the companies, workplace environments like schools, and individual doctors who have to repeat these obvious lies, or maybe they'll get fired, are subtly being told by the intersectional thought police that in order to even exist and earn income in the society that we're building by taking everything over, you'll have to be willing to lie about literally anything and potentially everything, including your own perception of reality. It reminds me a bit of the Soviet Union, where the people were all demanded to play along, claiming that the Soviet Union was great and prosperous. And even though they all knew that it wasn't, if they said so, they'd be sent to the gulag or executed or something. at least being punished severely, maybe if it was their first time. Anyhow, this is yet another reminder that Jordan Peterson was both right when he first objected to Bill C-16, where they lied and said nobody would ever get in trouble for accidental misgenderings, but also when he said that this could easily be the first step towards totalitarianism, which we must continue to fight at all costs, even if these people are going to tell you it invalidates them as humans, which, of course, is another lie. Have no sympathy for these people and never hang out with them. Invalidating a state of being that is generally so removed from reality that it makes about as much sense as this article is the opposite of invalidating somebody's humanity. It's reminding them that, whether they like it or not, they're still human, and they'll most likely get referred to as a human would, with male or female pronouns, and then remind them that they simply can't force people to use these pronouns, because we don't live in Josephine Stalin's America. Yet, we live in something that's salvageable before that type of person rises into power. Make sure they don't. That's all for this video. Make sure to follow me on Minds and to BitChute, and try to remember to check out my channel to see if I've made a new video, because often I have.